Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ. Bless all praises to the Most High. In the name of His Son, His Word, Jesus the Christ. We are back with another Bible History 101. And like we've been doing these past couple weeks, as we got into the story of the kings, we've been jumping back and forth between the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah. Last week, we went over Jehoshaphat all the way until we went over Jehoshaphat and Jehoram, I should say, of Judah. So now we're jumping back to Elijah and Elisha. All right, because all the kings of Israel, of the northern kingdom, were wicked. So instead, we're focusing on the prophets who were not wicked, who rebuked those wicked men. All right. So let me just make sure everything's running smoothly and there are no technical difficulties. So let me just make sure. Praise the Most High. All right. Praise God. Let's get into it. In 2 Kings chapter 1. The last time we were in the kings of the northern kingdom, the kings of Samaria, we talked about the death of Ahab, and now we're going to get into his son. All right. 2 Kings 1:1. Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab, and Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. And he sent messengers and said unto them, Go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, Is it not because there is not a God in Israel that ye go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Right? So obviously the northern kingdom kings, as I was just saying, were wicked, especially Ahab and his lineage. They worshipped all the other lords of the region, all the other gods of the region. They worship Baalim, as the scripture may say, right? So specifically the lord of the flies, right, Beelzebub. And so Ahaziah, whenever he took his tumble, right, fell through the lattice work, he said, go inquire of the gods of Ekron. So the Lord took offense to this, because this is still his people, even though they wicked. This is still his people. All right. So that's what the angel of the Lord come and told Elijah. Look, go and rebuke Ahaziah for not coming to me and instead going into an idol god. Now, therefore, thus saith the Lord, Thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And Elijah departed. So God said, Look, you're going to die from these injuries that you received. And when the messengers turned back unto him, he said unto them, Why are ye now turned back? And they said unto him, There came a man up to meet us, and said unto us, Go, turn again unto the king that sent you, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Is it not because there is not a God in Israel, that thou sendest to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And he said unto them, What manner of man was he which came up to meet you, and told you these words? And they answered him, He was a hairy man, and girt with a girdle of leather about his loins. And he said, It is Elijah the Tishbite, right? So they did all this through messengers, right? You couldn't just walk into the presence of the king, especially if you were Elijah, because Elijah was known to be a prophet, and they wouldn't let him in, right? Basically, and at times they wanted to kill him, Jezebel specifically. But anyway, verse 9. Then the king sent unto Elijah, a captain of 50 with his 50, and he went up to him. And behold, he sat on the top of a hill. And he spake unto him, Thou man of God, the king had said, Come down. And Elijah answered and said unto the captain of 50, If I be a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and his 50. Right? So Elijah, he's calling down meteors, striking these people down. Right? This is a captain and his 50 men that he just killed with these meteors. All right? 11. Again also he sent unto him another captain of 50 with his 50. And he answered and said unto him, O man of God, thus hath the king said, Come down quickly. Right? So get down here now. Right? That's what the king sent saying. You just killed my man, come down here right now. And Elijah answered and said unto them, If I be a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. Right? So it's another set of a captain and his 50 men. And the fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. So Elijah brought down that meteor. Boom, boom. Just bringing down all these men. Just destroying all these men with meteors. Verse 13. And he sent again a captain of a captain of the third 50 with his 50. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Elijah and besought him and said unto him, O man of God, I pray thee, let my life and the life of these 50 thy servants be precious in thy sight. Behold, there came fire down from heaven and burnt up the two captains of the former 50s with their 50s. Therefore, let my life now be precious in thy sight. So this man's afraid because he knows what happened to the other two. He heard stories about what Elijah did to him. So he come up trembling, like, please, I got orders from the king. I had to come up here. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me and these men. We're your servants. All right. Verse 15. And the angel of the Lord said unto Elijah, go down with him. Be not afraid of him. And he arose and went down with him unto the king. Right? Because Elijah, he didn't want to get put to death by the king, which he's assuming that's why he's being called to the presence of the king. And he was, Elijah was about to strike down these men too. But the angel said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Go with him. All right. So that lets you know Elijah wasn't necessarily in the, in the right spirit of mercy right there. But, it is what it is. He was still a prophet of the Lord. Verse 16. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord, for as much as thou hast sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, is it not because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore thou shalt come down off that bed. Therefore thou shalt not come down off that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. All right. Verse 17. So he died according to the word of the Lord, which Elijah had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his stead. In the second year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Right. So Jehoram was the brother of Ahaziah. Ahaziah had no son to be the heir to the throne, so his brother took the throne instead. His brother, who is also the son of Ahab. All right. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah, which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? We do not have the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. The Chronicles that we have are the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. All right. Chapter 2 in 2 Kings, starting with verse 1. And it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel, right? So Elijah knows that he's about to get taken up into heaven by what we would call a UFO today, what the Bible calls a chariot or a cloud. Sometimes it's referred to as a star, right? But this is the ships of the Lord, right? The aircraft, the spacecraft of the Lord. All right, it's called a wheel within a wheel in Ezekiel. Different names for it, but it's describing the same thing. All right. So Elijah's saying, look, stay here. I'm about to leave, and I'm about to be carried up. And Elisha's like, no, I'm following you everywhere you go. Because that's how Elisha was. That was the spirit of zeal that Elisha had. All right. Verse 3. And the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he said, yeah, I know it. Hold ye your peace. He's like, yeah, I know. Just be quiet about it. Be quiet about it. Because he's sort of, at this point, sort of feigning to Elijah that he doesn't know, so that he can still follow him and witness this, event. Verse 4. And Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee. Right, stay here. For the Lord had sent me to Jericho. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho. And the sons of the prophets that were at Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he said, yeah, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said unto him, tarry, I pray thee. Here, stay here, please. That's what I pray that means, please. For the Lord has sent me to Jordan. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And they two went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off. And they too stood by Jordan, right? So the sons of the prophets are other prophets, right? And they're standing afar off because they don't want to get close to it, right? Because they know it's something big's about to happen. They don't want to be close to it. But again, the zeal of Elisha, he wants to be right there where the action is. He knows something amazing is about to happen. stood by the Jordan, and Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they too went over on dry ground. Right, so a mantle is like a hooded cape. All right, Elijah would often wear a hooded cape, and this smiting the waters is similar to the dividing of the Red Sea. Obviously, the dividing of the Red Sea, that's a larger body of water, and that was more of a grand scale because it was a nation of people trying to cross, right? But right here, it's similar where the Lord divided the waters. All right, verse 9. And it came to pass when they were gone over that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. Right, so we've read about the miracles that Elijah has performed, right? He brought a child back from the dead, right? And called meteors down from the sky, what we just read. As we see here, he parted the Jordan, right? Elijah has done many wonderful miracles. But Elisha said, I want a double portion of that spirit. Verse 10, and he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. Right? So Elijah's like, look, if you see this thing that's about to happen, you can have that double portion of the Holy Spirit. Verse 11, and it came to pass as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Right, so this isn't talking about like the horses are literally like flaming. This is talking about light. That's what they used fire for back then. They use it for heat and they use it for light. So when it says a chariot of fire, horses of fire, they're just describing this chariot of light. They're describing this craft of light. All right, and it's called a whirlwind because a whirlwind is like a tornado. And like, you know, when a helicopter comes down, the wind is like a whirlwind. It's the same thing with the chariots. All right, verse 12. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. Right, so he saw who was piloting it. All right, and he saw him no more. So he never saw Elijah again after that, because, you know, Elijah he never died. He was taken into heaven. And he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. Right, that was the mourning. That's a sign of mourning. That was a custom of mourning in Israel. They would rip your clothes. Verse 13. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and smote the waters, and said, where is the Lord God of Elijah? And when he also had smitten the waters, they parted hither and thither. And Elisha went over. Right, so he just performed the same miracle that Elijah did, only when he called upon the Lord. Verse 15. And when the sons of the prophets which were to view at Jericho saw him, they said, the spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. Right, because when something major happens in somebody's life, you can usually like see it in their demeanor, in their countenance, on their face. And they came to meet him and bowed themselves to the ground before him. And they said unto him, behold, now there be with thy servants 50 strong men. Let them go, we pray thee, and seek thy master, lest peradventure the spirit of the Lord had taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. And he said, ye shall not sin, because Elisha knew that he was gone. Right, that he was not coming back. The sons of the prophets were like, well, maybe the Lord picked him up, showed him something, dropped him off somewhere. Elisha's like, no, don't send him. Verse 17. And when they urged him till he was ashamed, he said, send. They sent therefore 50 men, and they sought 3 days, but found him not. Right, because Elijah was taken up into heaven. He wasn't dropped off anywhere. And when they came again to him, for he tarried at Jericho, they said unto him, did I not say unto you, go not? He's like, look, I told you not to go. You're not going to find him. Verse 19. And the men of the city said unto Elisha, behold, I pray thee, the situation of the city is pleasant, as my Lord seeth, but the water is naught, and the ground barren. Right, so they were in a drought. And he said, bring me a new cruse, and put salt therein. And they brought it to him. And when he went forth unto the spring of the waters, he cast the salt in there, and said, thus saith the Lord, I have healed these waters. There shall not be from thence any more death or barren land. Believe that's meant to say dearth. Let's see. I'm gonna pull out my actual Bible right here. You know, I do these. I do the online version so that I could like screen grab, and y'all be able to see it too. But sometimes these computer versions ain't always right. Maybe it does say death, but maybe it doesn't. Let's see. No, it does say death. It does say death. Okay, all praises. You can never be sure with these websites though, so you gotta check. Anyway, I have healed these waters; there shall not be from thence any more death or barren land. Verse 22. So the waters were healed unto this day, according to the saying of Elisha, which he spake. All right, so he brought the drought at that time to the end, or to an end, I should say. Verse 23. And he went up from thence unto Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him, and said, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them. All right, so when you read this, you think, oh, those are like 7-year-olds or whatever. But in the scriptures, you're a child until you're the age of 20. All right, so these were probably teenagers, like anywhere from like 12 to like 17 or 18, something like that. All right, so when you hear this, you think, oh, they're just playing around, they're just joking around, and it says, there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them. Right, so this wasn't just like a couple of kids laughing at him. This was a gang. This is what it was. This was a gang of preteens and teenagers who were harassing the prophet of the Lord. It didn't even say there were only 42. So there could have been anywhere from 50 to 80 of these kids who were harassing the prophet of the Lord. Of course they got the judgment. All right. And he went from thence to Mount Carmel, and from thence he returned to Samaria. Right, so he's going on travels the way that Elijah did. He's going where the Spirit of the Lord leads him. All right. Verse 1. And this 2 Kings chapter 3, starting with verse 1. Now Jehoram the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and like his mother. For he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Nevertheless, he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. Right, so we've talked about this before, about how Jeroboam the son of Nebat established the northern kingdom in wickedness. The foundation was in wickedness, because the foundation was based upon those golden calves that Jeroboam had made. All right, so even when you had somebody like Jehoram who was trying to do right in a sense and stop worshiping Baal and Baalim, he still was not all the way right, because he was still worshiping golden calves and in idolatry. All right, verse 4. And Meshah, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. But it came to pass, when Ahab was dead, that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And King Jehoram went out of Samaria at the same time, and numbered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat king of Judah, saying, The king of Moab hath rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up. I am as thou art. My people is thy people, and my horses as thy horses. And as we read last week, one of the biggest flaws that Jehoshaphat had was allying himself with wicked northern kingdom, because he's seen it as like, well, they're still my brothers, right? Even though they're wicked. God said, look, don't ally yourself with evil men. All right, 2 can't come together unless they be agreed. Verse 8. And he said, which way shall we go up? And he answered, the way through the wilderness of Edom. All right, so he said, look, we're going to go through Edom to get to Moab. And, we like the maps here at Bible History 101. Let's look at the maps. Is this going to show? This will show Edom. And, I'm coming around to this map. I know initially I said I didn't like it at first, but I'm coming around to it. So Samaria is up here, right? That's the capital of the northern kingdom. And obviously Jerusalem down here is the capital of the southern kingdom. So with Jehoram and Jehoshaphat coming together, they said, let's go down through the wilderness of Edom, which is down here. He's basically saying, let's go around the Salt Sea. Let's go around the base of the Jordan, the mouth of the Jordan. And we'll go up into the Moabites here. All right. So that's basically their plan of attack. And they said, we're not going to go through, go through En-Gedi. We're not going to go through En-Gedi. We're going to go around through Edom. All right. Let's go back. Verse 9. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom. And they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host, and for the cattle that followed them. And the king of Israel said, alas, that the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not here a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of the Lord by him? And one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said, here is Elisha the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah, meaning he ministered unto him, aka he was his servant. That's what minister means, he was his servant. And Jehoshaphat said, the word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king and the king of Edom went down to him. All right, so these 3 kings, the kings of Israel and Judah, but also the king of Edom, went to go meet with Elisha, I should say. Verse 13. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, what have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father, and to the prophets of thy mother. And the king of Israel said unto him, nay, for the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. So he said, I know that you and your family don't serve the Lord the way that I do. Why don't you get to the prophets of Baal and them? And he's like, look, I think this is going to go badly for us. I think this war is going to go badly for us. And Elisha said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, surely were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, I would not look toward thee nor see thee. Right? So the Lord's like, look, I'm dealing with Jehoshaphat. That's the only reason why I'm dealing with this alliance y'all got going on, because Jehoshaphat is righteous. All right. But now bring me a minstrel. It came to pass when the minstrel played that the hand of the Lord came upon him. Right. So this minstrel is like somebody who plays music. And he said, thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet the valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. Right? So he said, look, the Lord's going to bring up the water. All right? And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He will deliver the Moabites also into your hand, right? So God, he said, look, God can do this at any time. This is nothing to the Lord. He can bring you water, and he can bring you the Moabites as well. And ye shall smite every fenced city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones. And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. Right? So the Lord brought the water out. All right, in the land of Edom. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor and upward, and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water. And the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. Right, so they saw a mirage. They saw an illusion. And they said, this is blood. The kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now therefore Moab to the spoil. They said, look, oh, they're already dead. They killed each other. Let's go and reap the benefits. Excuse me. And when they came to the camp of Israel, excuse me, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. But they went forth smiting the Moabites even in their country, right? So they chased them all the way to Moab, all the way into Moab. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water and felled all the good trees. Only in Kaharaseth left they the stones thereof, howbeit the slingers went about it and smote it, right? So they destroyed all the cities in Moab, right? And cut down all the trees that they wanted. That's what felling trees is. Verse 26. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom. But they could not, right? So they tried their best, but still come up short, because the Lord is with this alliance of the northern kingdom of Israel, which is so-called Latinos, the southern kingdom of Israel, which is so-called blacks, and the Edomites, which is white people, coming against the Moabites, which is the Chinese. All right. Verse 27. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was a great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. All right, so yeah, that's rough. The king of Moab worshiping that human sacrifice god, that Molech. All right, so they hated Israel for this. All right. Now I do want to read into the aftermath of the siege of Samaria. I do want to get to that this week. Verse 1, and this is 2 Kings chapter 4. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. Right, so she said, you know my husband, you know he was a prophet, he's dead now, and the creditor has come to take unto him my two sons to be bondmen. Right, we owed this money, and now I can't pay the money back. So they're coming to take my sons to be indentured servants. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house, or in the house? And she said, Thy handmaid hath not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. Right, so go to house, in what vessels you can borrow, what kind of pots and pans you can borrow. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him, and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. All right. So here we see a miracle of multiplication. God has the power to multiply anything at any time. All right. And you see that with Christ with the loaves and the fishes. We saw that with Elijah when it come to a similar situation with the woman and oil. All right. So he said, look, all that's left over, or rather, all that you pour, go and sell, it'll be enough to pay your debt, and plus you'll also have some to live off of afterwards. Verse 8. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as often as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. Shunem. Let's see if I can see Shunem on this map, because we already got the map here. Cross over to Shunem. You see Shunem anywhere up here? Shunem is up here, next to Jezreel, and close to Issachar. All right. At least according to this map. Which this map isn't consistent with every map, because like it's all pretty much guesswork. But this map has a lot of cities on it, so it does show Shunem up there around Issachar. Great woman turned to the eat bread. Verse 9. And she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passed by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. Right? He shall have a place to stay with us. We'll make him a little guest bed. Verse 11. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among mine own people. Right. So he's like, what do you want in return? I can do great things for you. Right. And she's like, I don't want nothing. I just want to stay here. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, verily she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thy handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had sent unto her, according to the time of life. Right, so 9-10 months later, she had a baby. Verse 18. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, my head, my head. And he said to a lad, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. All right. Right. So this is years and years and years later. Right. The child grew up, and it appears that the child had a fever, and that he died from that fever. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. And she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. Right, so go, hurry up. We got to get to the man of God. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, it is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. Then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? All right, so she said, if this is of God, why did God kill my son? All right. Verse 29. Also, she said it is well when her son had died. I guess she wanted to get up close to him and, confront him. Verse 29. Then he said to Gehazi, gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thy hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again. And lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, the child is not awaked. Verse 32. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. Right, so it's just them two in the room. All right. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Right, so he had to get on top of the child and breathe life into him, similar to what Elijah did. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon the child, and the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Right, so notice how when Elijah and Elisha raised these children from the dead, they had to do a specific type of ceremony and ritual before the Lord. But when Christ did it, Christ did not have a particular measure of the Spirit. He had the full Spirit, right? So he would just say something and bring people back from the dead. But with Elijah and Elisha, they had a great amount of the Spirit, and Elisha even had a double portion of what Elijah had. But the Holy Spirit, the Lord measures it for individuals. Some may have it more, some may have it less. But with Christ, he had the full Spirit. But anyway. where were we at? The child waxed warm, right? After he breathed the life into him, the child waxed warm. Verse 35. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him, and the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes, right? After he sneezed 7 times. And he called Gehazi and said, call this Shunammite. So he called her, and when she was come in unto him, he said, take up thy son. Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and took up her son and went out. All right. Verse 38. And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land. Dearth meaning like drought. And the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, set on the great pot and seethe pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So they poured out for the men to eat, and it came to pass as they were eating of the pottage that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. But he said, then bring meal. And he cast it into the pot, and he said, pour out for the people that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot, right? So there was like some sort of rottenness in that, as it says right here, it's poisonous stew, poisonous pottage. There was some sort of like rottenness, some sort of fungus perhaps in the stew. And Elisha, what's the word? Purified it. And that's what it says right here, purifies. He sanctified it. All right. Verse 42. And there came a man of Bethshelisha, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and full ears of corn in the husks thereof. And he said, give unto the people that they may eat. And his servitor said, what, should I set this before 100 men? He said, give the people that they may eat. For thus saith the Lord, they shall eat and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat and left thereof according to the word of the Lord. So again, not to the scale of which Christ had the loaves and the fishes, but a similar type of miracle when it comes to multiplication. All right. It's as he said about delivering the Moabites into the hand of Jehoram and the alliance of the kings. It's nothing unto the Lord to do these things. The Lord does these things very easily. All right. 2 Kings 5 and verse 1. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. Right, so this type of leprosy, it's obviously not the debilitating kind. The Bible calls anything that spreads, it calls leprosy. All right, you read about that in Leviticus 13, Leviticus 14. Hell, your house can even have leprosy if it's like mold and mildew spreading in your house. All right. So this type of leprosy is obviously not like the sores kind of leprosy. It's not the debilitating, injurious type of leprosy, because this man still went out to war. He was still a man of valor. Right. So this is probably the vitiligo form of leprosy. Right. The spreading of whiteness amongst melanated skin. All right. That is also a form of, like I said, anything that spreads in the skin is considered leprosy. Verse 4. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go. And I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. Right, this whole reward. He said, if you can cure me of my leprosy, I'll give you all this. Excuse me. Verse 6. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, now when this letter is coming to thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh the quarrel against me. Right, so this is Jehoram right here saying, look, I can't cure you of your leprosy. I'm not God. I don't know what you're sending to me for. He wants to start a fight with me and say I can't cure him of his leprosy, because of course I can't. Who am I? Verse 8. And it was so when Elisha the man of God had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. All right, so again, you see, when it comes to Elijah and Elisha, their miracles require a type of like cleansing, ritual cleansing process, right? With Christ, it was not so. Christ had the full spirit. They had measure of it, right? Jordan 7 times, and thou shalt be clean. Verse 11. But Naaman was wroth and went away and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. Right? I thought it was going to be this big event that I would see. He would come and do this, right? Verse 12. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. He's like, why? I got to wash in the Jordan. Why can't I do it in Syrian rivers? Verse 13. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then that he saith unto you, Wash and be clean? Right? So the servants were like, Look, you probably would have done anything to cleanse yourself of leprosy. Why are you getting mad that he said go to the Jordan? Verse 14. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again, like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Right? It was baby smooth. Verse 15. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. But he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused, right? So Elisha's like, look, I don't do this for money. I don't do this for the rewards you're going to give me. I do this because God has sent me to do it. All right, verse 17. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. He says, surely I can give you something, at least something for your servants or for your, mules. Verse 18. And this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, I will... and I bow myself in the house of Ramon. When I bow down myself in the house of Ramon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. He said, look, I'm still a servant to the king of Syria, so I'm still going to have to do the Syrian customs, but other than that, I'm going to serve the Lord. Verse 19. And he said unto him, excuse me, and he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. All right, so Elisha's like, look, just go. I don't need anything. Verse 20. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian, and not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. He's like, look, Elisha might not have wanted anything, but I'll take something. Verse 21. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? Right, so Naaman saw... He's like, oh, what happened? What's going on? He saw Gehazi. He's like, oh, what are you doing here? Verse 22. And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 change of garments. Right, so Gehazi is lying to get some new clothes and some money. Verse 23. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before them. Right, so Naaman's like, well, that's nothing. Go ahead and take some money, be content with this. Take some money, take these clothes, whatever. Verse 24. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house. And he let the man go, and they departed. Excuse me. Verse 25. But he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. He's like, I ain't going nowhere. As if Elisha wouldn't notice that his servant went somewhere, right? That he left him. Verse 26. And he said unto him, went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments and olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and men servants and maid servants? Now he said, look, it's not the time for that. I literally just told him, man, I don't want his money. I don't want the stuff that he could give me. I do this to serve the Lord. And then you turn around and you say, well, you know what? I want some money. Verse 27. The leprosy, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper as white as snow. You see that right there? So that vitiligo went on to Gehazi. It left from Naaman, went to Gehazi. All right. So from there, this is what I wanted to get to. Chapter 6 and 7, I believe. I think we'll stop after 7. 2 Kings 6, starting with verse 1. And the sons of the prophet said unto Elisha, behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam, and let us make us a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, go ye. Right? So they said, look, we need to build a different place. There's too many of us to stay in this one place. We need to go build another place. And one said, be content, I pray thee, to go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water. And he cried and said, alas, master, for it was borrowed. He's like, look, this ain't even my axe. Now I done lost the head of it. Verse 6. And the man of God said, where fell it? And he showed him the place, and he cut down a stick, cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. The iron floated up to the top. Therefore said he, take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. All right, so normally, obviously, iron sinks, but right here, the Lord can do anything. He changed the density of the iron, brought it to the top of the water. Verse 8. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent to the king of Israel, saying, beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there not once nor twice. So, he was listening to the counsel of Elisha, the king was, and he saved him many times. Verse 11. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? Excuse me. So, because the king of Israel was able to evade the king of Syria, because Jehoram was able to evade the king of Syria, he was like, surely there's a spy in our midst, right? How does he know our strategy? How does he know our game plan? How does he know where we're going to be, right? And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king. But Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber, right? So he's saying, look, Elisha knows what you're doing when you're by yourself. And when you're coming up with these battle strategies. And he said, go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. Let's see if we got Dothan on here. I don't know if we do or not. Surely, right? Dothan. Not seeing it. Not seeing Dothan. Dothan. Yeah, I'm not seeing Dothan. Unfortunately, not seeing Dothan. It's probably here. I'm probably just looking over it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here's Dothan right here. Dothan right in the middle, just northeast of Samaria. All right, let's get back at it. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. They said, oh, Elisha's in Dothan. We're going to siege Dothan. All right, we're going to destroy the whole city looking for him. Verse 15. And when a servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host compassed the city both with horses and chariots, and his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. So you gotta imagine, it's just this servant and Elisha are the only ones in this place. And they see armies come passing about, right? And so, of course, he's, shivering in his boots, right? He's trembling, he's scared. But Elisha says there's more with us than to be with them. Verse 17. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Right, so all the angels, all the chariots, right? Legions, as Christ said. Legions of angels. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria, right? So this whole army got smit with blindness. And Elisha said, look, Elisha's not here, but I can take you to him. This is the wrong city. I can take you to him. Verse 20. And it came to pass when they were come into Samaria that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw. And behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha when he saw them, my father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he said, thou shalt not smite them. Wouldst thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master. And he prepared great provision for them, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away. And they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. All right. So, all these army men, they didn't even take them out right there. They was just like, we'll feed you and send you home. Verse 24. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. Right. So, those army men in that regime of Syria didn't come no more to the land of Israel. But the next regime, there was always, it was like on and off between Syria and the, especially the northern kingdom, but with the southern kingdom as well. Syria was never our friends. They were always enemies. All right, verse 25. And there was a great famine, and if there was an allegiance, it was short-lived. All right. And there was a great famine in Samaria. And behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 4 pieces of silver, and the 4th part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. Right, so they were eating anything that they could get their hands on. And that's a curse of Deuteronomy 28 if you read through the 50s. You read about this. About the besieging of capital cities, right? It happened in Jerusalem twice. It happened in Samaria twice. And this is the first time it happened in Samaria. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, help, my lord, O king. And he said, if the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor or out of the wine press? He's like, look, I don't have anything to help you with. I'm running out of stuff to eat just like y'all are. And the king said unto her, what aileth thee? And she answered, this woman said unto me, give thy son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give thy son that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. And it came to pass when the king heard the words of the woman that he rent his clothes. And he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. So the eating of your own children because of your starvation, again, that is a curse of Deuteronomy 28. All right, again, it's in the 50s, from like 52 to 57, 58. Something like that. It's probably even starting at verse 50 or so. Anyway. Verse 31. Then he said, God do so and more also to me, if the head of Elijah the son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. He's like, look, we were supposed to have a prophet of the Lord. What happened to him defending the city? What happened to him defending the people? Excuse me. Verse 32. But Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him, but ere the messenger came to him, ere the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, see ye how the son of a murderer has sent to take away my head? Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? Right, so he's like, look, they're coming to take my head now. No, that's what he's telling all the elders that are with him, right? Because he's instructing the elders. They're all listening to the prophet on what to do. Verse 33. And while he yet talked with them, behold, the messenger came down unto him and said, behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord any longer? Let's go to the next chapter. Okay, this is 2 Kings 7, starting with verse 1. Then Elisha said, hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. So he's like, look, tomorrow all of this is going to be resolved, and there's going to be plenty of food for everyone. All right, verse 2. Then a Lord on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. So because this man doubted, Elisha said, look, you're going to see this happen, but you're not going to be able to reap the benefits. All right, you're not going to be able to partake. Verse 3. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die. Right? So they're like, we ain't got nothing to lose. We might as well go to the Syrians, see what they can offer us. Verse 5. And they rose up in the twilight to go into the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the king of the Hittites, the king of the Egyptians, to come upon, and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Right. So here we see again there be more with us than there are with them. Right. So they're hearing the angels. The angels are making these noises, and they think it's the Hittites and the Egyptians. Verse 7. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight and left their tents and their horses and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink and carried thence silver and gold and raiment and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent and carried thence also and went and hid it. So this is like a scene out of like a comedy movie, right? Where you have these like 2 random side characters who are stumble upon like this great treasure, like it's pretty goofy. Verse 9. Then they said one to another, we do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. Right? So they're the comedic side characters with a heart of gold. They're like, we can't keep this to ourselves. Even though we're sitting here and it would be great to keep it to ourselves, we gotta let the people know, and we will be blessed. And if we keep it to ourselves, then something bad is gonna happen to us. Verse 10. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told him, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry. Therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as all the multitudes of the Israelites that are consumed. Let us send and right. So these are like skinny horses. Let us send and see. These are like skinny and weak horses. That's like, look, we got to send some people out to see what's going on. Let's do that. The king of Israel right here, Jehoram, really scared, really scary. Right, he's being weak-minded, weak in faith. And saying, like, oh, they're hiding, they're gonna ambush us. Here we go. All right. Anyway, verse 14. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, go and see. Verse 15. And when they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels which the Syrians had cast away in their haste, and the messengers returned and told the king. Right, so they went and see that. Oh, they just left. They just left because they all of a sudden because they were scared. Verse 16. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. They had many things in abundance, right? Verse 17. And the king appointed the Lord on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the gate. And the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spake when the king came down to him. All right, so that man, he got trampled in all this because the people were rushing out of the city to go get the goods. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And that Lord answered the man of God and said, Now behold, if the Lord shall make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see with thine eyes, but thou shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, for the people trod upon him in the gate, and he died. Right, so all that came to pass. And now we are on the other side of the siege of Samaria. And Elisha is still around, but I think it's actually the next chapter where he... No. So it's on down the line where Elisha dies. But we'll pick up... We'll actually probably jump back to the kings of Judah next week, try to catch up and even get ahead, so that when we come back to 2 Kings 8, we can just keep it going. So with that, hope y'all learned something. I say shalom. Most High in Christ bless.